She screamed, "Move that ugly stand right now!" And before I could even reach my son, her SUV jumped forward. The cups flew, the table crashed, and people around gasped as I ran shouting his name. My heart felt like it stopped. Karen stepped out like nothing happened, adjusting her sunglasses and yelling, "He deserved it!" My son asked nicely. My boy was shaking. Lemonade all over his shoes, his hands tight around the empty jar. She pointed at him and said, "This sidewalk belongs to the HOA. You don't sell here unless I say so." I told her to back away, but she smirked and pulled out a folded paper, slapping it on the stand. HOA violation. I can have you removed today. Then she leaned close and whispered, "Poor people should know their place." Phones were already recording, but she didn't care. She looked at me like I was nothing, not knowing this wasn't just a lemonade stand, and this wasn't just my land. I picked up the jar slowly and said one line that made her laugh out loud. "Go ahead, Karen. Call whoever you want." Karen didn't even hesitate. She pulled out her phone and dialed fast, loud enough so everyone could hear. "Yes, I need officers right now. A man is running an illegal business and attacked my vehicle." She pointed at the crushed stand, like it was proof. My son held my shirt and whispered, "Dad, did I do something wrong?" That question hurt more than the crash. I told him softly, "No, buddy, you did nothing wrong." Within minutes, 2 men showed up in black uniforms. No city logo, no badge shine, just cheap patches that said HOA security. One of them barked, "Sir, step away from the child." Karen crossed her arms, smiling like she already won. "Arrest him. He's trespassing and exploiting children for money." They grabbed my arm, hard. The crowd started yelling. Someone screamed, "That's a kid!" My son cried when they pushed me back. And Karen bent down to him, saying, "Next time, sell lemonade to my son first." That's when I noticed something small. One of the officers had a body cam sticker on his chest. Just a sticker, no camera. I looked at Karen and said calmly, "You sure you want to do this in front of everyone? And all these cameras?" Her smile didn't fade. It grew wider. She told them to take me away. "Teach him a lesson," she said, waving her hand like she was swatting a fly. One of the fake officers twisted my wrist tighter, and my son screamed, "Stop! Please stop!" That sound made people angry. A man yelled, "You can't touch him like that!" A woman started filming closer. Karen snapped, "Back up! This is HOA business." Then she looked at me and said, "You think because you look calm, you're smart. I run this neighborhood." I glanced down at the broken stand again, then at the metal pole lying on the ground. That pole wasn't supposed to be there today. I had planted it yesterday morning for a small sign, a survey marker. I took a slow breath and said, "Funny thing about this sidewalk." She rolled her eyes. "Don't start lying." I continued anyway. "This part doesn't belong to your HOA. The fake officer laughed. "Sure it does." I nodded toward the pole. "That marker means county land reassessment. Anything past it?" I paused, letting the words hang. "Is mine." Karen's face twitched for half a second. Just one. Then she snapped, "He's bluffing. Tow his truck. Take the kid." That's when a black pickup stopped across the street. No sirens, no lights. Just a man stepping out slowly, wearing a sheriff's badge. The moment the badge caught the sunlight, the whole street went quiet. One of the fake officers loosened his grip without even thinking. Karen laughed nervously and said, "Oh, good. Finally real law enforcement. Arrest him." The sheriff didn't rush. He looked at my son first, then at the smashed stand, then at the tire marks leading straight through it. His jaw tightened. "Who was driving that SUV?" Karen lifted her chin. "I was, but he jumped in front of me. This man is running an illegal business on HOA property." The sheriff turned to me. "Is that true?" I shook my head. "No, sir. And I already called your office this morning." That made Karen spin around. "For what?" I reached into my pocket and pulled out a folded paper, edges still dusty. "Because yesterday your HOA sent bulldozers to this block." The sheriff's eyes narrowed. And they crossed onto federally protected land." The word federally hit like a slap. Karen's smile froze. One of the fake officers stepped back slowly. The sheriff took the paper, read one line, then looked straight at Karen. "Ma'am, he said, voice low. Do you have any idea whose land you just damaged? She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Karen started talking fast. This is ridiculous. My husband sits on the HOA board. We've lived here 10 years. You can't just... The sheriff raised his hand. Ma'am, stop! Then he looked at the fake officers. You two, where did you get those uniforms? One of them mumbled, private security. The sheriff stepped closer. Private security doesn't put hands on citizens or pretend to be police. The crowd moved in. Phones everywhere now. Karen suddenly changed her tone. I was just trying to protect the neighborhood. That child was causing traffic. My son wiped his face and said softly, I was just selling lemonade. That sentence broke something in the air. The sheriff crouched down to my son's level. You did good, kid. Then he stood back up and said, Now here's the part you won't like. He pointed at the ground. This land was reclaimed last month under a federal veterans program. Karen blinked. So? The sheriff turned to me. You want to tell her, or should I? I finally spoke again. I didn't buy this land to fight people. I bought it so my son could grow up. Safe. I looked at... Karen, the program gives ownership priority to disabled vets. Her face went pale. Wait, you? I nodded. 2 tours. The fake officers backed away completely. One of them whispered, We should go. Karen shouted, You're lying! The sheriff pulled out his radio. Send a unit. Possible vehicle assault. Child involved. That's when Karen started shaking. Karen tried to step back toward her SUV, but the sheriff's voice cut through the noise. Don't move. She froze, one hand still on the door handle. Her confidence was gone now, replaced with panic. This is getting blown out of proportion, she said. The kid isn't even hurt. The sheriff looked at the crushed cups again. You ran over a child's stand with a moving vehicle. That's not nothing. A second patrol car pulled up. This time, real lights, real badges. The fake officers didn't wait. They slipped into their car and sped off, leaving Karen standing alone. She shouted after them, You can't leave me! One of the real deputies asked me quietly, You want to press charges? I looked at my son. His knees were scraped, his eyes still wet, but he nodded. She was mean, Dad. That was enough. Karen started crying, loud, dramatic. I'm a mother. I was just defending my son. The sheriff replied coldly. Then you should have taught him how to ask, not how to take. They turned her around and cuffed her. The moment the metal clicked, the crowd let out a sound she'd never heard before. Relief. As they walked her past us, she hissed, This isn't over. I leaned down and said quietly, It was over the moment you touched my child. She couldn't look at me anymore. The deputies took her toward the car. But before the door closed, the sheriff stopped them. Wait! He turned to the crowd. Who here saw what happened? Hands went up everywhere. One man said, She floored it. A woman said, The kid was standing still. Another voice shouted, I got it all on video. Karen's face dropped when she heard that. That's fake, she cried. They're lying. The sheriff held up a phone someone handed him. The screen showed everything. Her yelling. The SUV moving forward, my son jumping back. No edits, no cuts, just truth. The sheriff exhaled slowly. That video just upgraded this. Karen panicked. Please, I'll pay for the stand. I'll donate. I'll apologize. I shook my head. You already showed who you are. Then another twist hit her harder. The sheriff said, By the way, that lemonade stand? He pointed to the jar. Money made on private land by a minor isn't illegal, Karen whispered, but the HOA has no power here, he cut in. And after today, they'll be investigated too. Her knees nearly gave out. Neighbors started helping my son rebuild the stand right there. Someone brought a new table. Someone else handed him fresh lemons. Kids lined up with dollars in their hands. As Karen was driven away, my son looked at the new crowd and smiled for the first time. He held up the jar and said, Lemonade's still cold. And everyone stepped forward. The street felt different after the patrol car disappeared. Quiet, but lighter. The sheriff stayed a moment longer, watching neighbors stand together like they never had before. He shook my hand and said, You protected your kid the right way. Then he left without another word. We rebuilt the stand fully before sunset. New sign, straight table, the same spot Karen tried to control. My son counted the money slowly, then looked up at me. "Dad, are we safe now?" I knelt beside him. "Yeah, we are." A few days later, news spread fast. The HOA board was suspended. Charges stacked up. Vehicle assault, false report, impersonation. Karen's name was everywhere, but not the way she liked. That evening, my son set the jar on the stand again. A small flag waved beside it, one he insisted on putting there himself. When someone asked why, he said, "My dad fought so I could stand here. I watch cars pass, nobody honking now, nobody shouting. Just people waving. I didn't fight for this country to be told where my child could stand. And I didn't raise my son to be afraid of bullies. Sometimes justice doesn't shout. It just shows up and stays. Weeks later, things settled. But the memory of Karen's SUV still lingered. One morning, my son ran outside, waving excitedly. "Dad, someone left a note in the jar." I leaned closer and read it. "Thank you for standing up. You reminded all of us that right matters more than power." A smile crept across my face. My son's lemonade stand had turned into more than just a small business. It became a symbol. Neighbors started bringing their kids, selling cookies, toys, even crafts. What Karen tried to crush had grown into a little community hub. One afternoon, as I fixed the stand, I overheard a conversation between two neighbors. "Can you believe she thought she owned this sidewalk?" One laughed. "And he's a veteran? That's epic." I looked at my son, sticky fingers from lemonade, proud and fearless. He grinned. "Next time she won't even dare touch a cup." I chuckled, ruffling his hair. "No, buddy. She never will." And for the first time in weeks, I felt completely at peace. The land, the stand, my family, they were safe. Justice had been served, not with anger, but with truth, courage, and a little lemonade. The camera pans out slowly. Kids laughing, neighbors smiling, the flag fluttering in the wind. A quiet victory, but one that everyone would remember. And somewhere far away, Karen realized that trying to control what isn't hers only exposes her. Months passed, but the story didn't die. Videos of Karen's tantrum went viral online, shared by neighbors and local news. Comments flooded in, people cheering my son, criticizing her, celebrating justice. My phone buzzed constantly with messages. "Your son's bravery is inspiring." That was the sweetest revenge ever. "HOA gone, hero dad confirmed." One Saturday, a local reporter knocked on the door. "Can we interview you and your son? People want to know how you stood up to HOA tyranny." I looked at my son, who had already set up a fresh pitcher of lemonade. He shrugged and said, "Sure, but only if everyone gets a cup." The camera rolled, capturing his smile, the rebuilt stand and the small flag fluttering proudly. I spoke clearly. Slowly, "I didn't fight for this country just to watch bullies take what's ours. Stand up for your rights. Protect your kids. And don't let anyone tell you where you belong." The reporter nodded, impressed. "That's powerful." And as the segment aired, my son waved to the TV screen like a little hero. People across the country seeing him, cheering for him. Learning that courage isn't about strength alone. It's about standing up, even when the bully drives the SUV. From that day on, our lemonade stand wasn't just a stand. It was a lesson in justice, courage, and the power of never backing down. Karen, she disappeared from the neighborhood. But every time my son poured lemonade, I whispered to him, "Remember, this is your land, your rights, your victory." And he smiled, knowing some battles are small, yet unforgettable. One quiet evening, as the sun dipped low, my son sat on the curb counting the day's earnings. He paused, looking at the empty street where Karen's SUV used to roar, and said softly, "Dad, think she'll ever come back?" I shook my head, smiling. "Not a chance. The whole town knows now she can't touch this place." He grinned, picking up a cup of lemonade. "Then let's make it even bigger." And that's exactly what we did. Over the next few weeks, neighbors joined in. Kids set up more stands. One family sold cookies, another made lemonade too. The sidewalk became alive, filled with laughter and chatter. The sound was louder than any threat Karen could ever make. I watched my son hand a cup to a little girl who tripped near the curb. He helped her up and said, "Here, this one's free. Don't let anyone boss you around." In that moment, I realized the lesson had passed. Justice wasn't just served by the law, it was lived by standing up. protecting your family and turning fear into community strength. And somewhere far away, Karen's calls and threats meant nothing. All that remained was the sound of kids laughing, lemonade flowing, and a father and son who had won more than a small battle. They had reclaimed their peace, their land, and their pride. The camera pans out one last time.